Good morning, everyone. This is your fourth stimulus check update and daily news report. I will be covering the latest news and information on stimulus payments in this video. Is one of the most powerful storms to ever make landfall in the United States. It has become a new catalyst on Capitol Hill for lawmakers, pushing a $1 trillion bill to rebuild the nation's crumbling infrastructure. The hurricane and the damage linked to it is bolstering supporters of the Senate-passed infrastructure bill, who say that the latest natural disaster shows the need to immediately enact the $46 billion, which was included in the legislation, to mitigate the destruction wrought by floods, wildfires, and droughts, and the $28 billion to strengthen power grid infrastructure, resiliency, and reliability. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy said during an interview on CNBC News, "If we are going to make our country more resilient to natural disasters, wherever they are, we have to start preparing now. I'm sure hoping that the Republicans look around their state, see this damage, and say, if there's money for resiliency, money to harden the power grid, money to help sewer and water, then maybe this is something we should be for." The Senate already approved the infrastructure bill in a 69-30 vote last month, with 19 Republicans joining all 50 Democrats to pass the measure. But the bill, which includes $550 billion in new funding, mostly traditional projects like roads and bridges, transits, airports, and broadband, still needs to clear the White House in order to become law. Democrats set a September 27th deadline for a vote on the bill under a new deal between Speaker Nancy Pelosi and 9 moderate members of her caucus, who are worried about a plan to tether the infrastructure legislation's package to a larger reconciliation bill. Hurricane Ida's destruction could result in insured losses as high as $25 billion. Still, progressives have used the hurricane to argue the opposite point. Combating climate change and passing the reconciliation bill should be the top priority. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, "We are running out of time to act on climate. Members of both parties engage in misleading rhetoric and funny math to convince the public we are addressing climate change, more than we are, and that includes parts of the current infrastructure plan. We need a Green Deal now." So everyone, what are your thoughts about what's going on? Please leave them in the comment section below.
Is for the Congress, the House and Senate, to finish the job of passing my economic agenda so that we can keep up the historic momentum we've been building these last 7 months. It's about investing in America's future, not about short-term stimulus. That's not what we're talking about. These are long-term prosperity we're talking about lowering the cost of living for families, creating millions of good-paying jobs for hardworking Americans. It's about reducing bottlenecks in our economy, reducing long-term price pressures. It's about helping more people to work by helping ease the burden that parents bear, especially mothers, keeping them out of the job market. Both the Senate and the House have taken important steps forward to pass my bipartisan infrastructure plan. This bill is going to end years of gridlock. We used to remember we always had the whole notion we had, I guess, was every week was going to be infrastructure week. Well, both literally and figuratively, it's going to change things on our streets across the country and figuratively as it relates to Washington. We're going to create millions of good-paying jobs. We're going to ease inflationary pressure and allow us to win the competition of the 21st century in a global economy where the competition has become more intense. Look, it's historic investment in roads and rail, in transit and bridges, in clean energy, in clean water, universal broadband. It's going to modernize our energy grid. You need not go any further than look what's happening across the country now in terms of the energy grid. It's about resilience. Make our roads and highways safer. Make us more resilient to the kinds of devastating impacts from extreme weather we're seeing in so many parts of the country. And look, this is about good paying jobs for ordinary people, blue collar workers, jobs at prevailing wage, not $15 an hour or 20 or 30. but for the carpenters and pipe fitters, plumbers, electrical workers, and so many other Americans. About 90% of the jobs we'll create with this plan won't require a college degree, but will fundamentally transform the lives of millions.
Senator Joe Manchin is demanding a strategic pause in the action on President Joe Biden's economic agenda, potentially imperiling the $3.5 trillion tax and spending package that Democratic leaders plan to push through Congress this coming fall. The West Virginia Democrat, a vote in the evenly divided Senate, said at an event that rising inflation and a soaring national debt necessitate a go-slow approach and a significantly smaller plan than the one that Democratic leaders and the White House have endorsed. Joe Manchin stated, by placing a strategic pause on this budgetary proposal, by significantly reducing the size of any possible reconciliation bill to only what American can afford and needs to spend, we can and will build a better and stronger nation for all our families. Joe Manchin's comments come as Democratic leaders and committee chairs in the Senate and House work on the specifics of the economic package, with a goal of moving it through Congress soon after lawmakers return from a recess later this month. All members of the Senate Democratic caucus would have to back the measure for it to get 51 votes needed to pass, with Vice President Kamala Harris providing the tie-breaking vote. A spokesman for Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer did not immediately respond to requests for more comment about Joe Manchin's request, and White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki did not immediately provide a comment. The Change.org petition that was started more than a year ago by a Denver restaurant owner calling for targeted stimulus money has now received more than 3 million signatures. The petition calls for payments of $2,000 for each adult and $1,000 for each child until this crisis is over. Meanwhile, many lawmakers are behind the idea of recurring stimulus checks. Democratic lawmakers recently proposed legislation that would hand over recurring checks or guaranteed income, with monthly payments of up to $1,200 for adults and $600 for children. However, there was no timeline given on if and when the legislation would be considered, or how long it would take to implement the new programs if the bill was to be approved. When it comes to the White House and leaders in Congress, who are currently on recess, they have not given any indication on a fourth payment or when it will be approved. In the meantime, millions of Americans have been receiving child tax credits. While American parents used to receive $2,000 per child, the IRS is offering $3,600 per child for families with children under the age of 6 and $3,000 for families with older children. So everyone, that's the end of the video for this morning. Thank you so much everyone for joining me here today, and I hope you found this information helpful. In a video later today, thank you so much everyone.